Their union began with a risk that could have cost them their crowns and their lives, but instead, it changed the course of world history. Ferdinand of Aragon and Isabella of Castile were not simply monarchs bound by political strategy. They were a determined partnership, a fierce alliance, a royal love bound together by faith, ambition, and a singular dream to create one Spain and establish it among the greatest powers on earth. When Isabella was born in 1451, Castile was already a land of turbulence. Civil wars, power struggles, and court rivalries shaped her early years, teaching her caution and resilience. Only 3 years later, Ferdinand, the future King of Aragon, came into a world facing its own conflicts and ambitions. No one could have predicted that these two children, one a princess underestimated at court, the other a prince raised for strategy, would grow up to rule side by side and reshape the destiny of continents. Their story truly began with defiance. Isabella, forced into several unwanted marriage negotiations, resisted pressures from powerful nobles and even her half-brother, King Henry IV. She vowed she would marry only for both political advantage and personal conviction. Ferdinand, equal in stubbornness, had been raised in the traditions of Aragon's assertive monarchy. When he and Isabella finally agreed to marry in 1469, it was in secret. Ferdinand traveled to Castile disguised as a servant so they could meet without interference, and they pledged themselves to each other not only as spouses but as future co-rulers, an unprecedented agreement in an age where queens were expected to yield completely to kings. Their marriage was controversial. Many Castilian nobles opposed it, fearing Aragon's influence. Pope Paul II initially refused to approve the union, yet Ferdinand and Isabella stood firm. Their bond was built not only on love but on a shared vision, a united and powerful Iberian kingdom. When Isabella ascended the Castilian throne in 1474, the crown was immediately contested. She found herself plunged into a brutal war of succession against Juana la Beltraneja, Henry IV's alleged daughter. Throughout the conflict, Ferdinand acted as both husband and military partner, commanding armies at her side. Victory in 1479 secured Isabella's undisputed rule, just as Ferdinand inherited the crown of Aragon from his father that same year. Now, with two crowns joined under one marriage, Spain as we know it began to take form. What made Ferdinand and Isabella extraordinary was not merely their political union but how they ruled together. They traveled constantly across their lands, showing themselves to the people, ensuring loyalty, justice, and order. They strengthened royal authority and reigned in the power of the nobility. They reformed government systems, improved tax collection, and built a centralized administration that would become the backbone of a Spanish empire. Both rulers were intensely Catholic, so intensely that it shaped every major decision of their reign. They believed religious unity was essential to political unity. Their first sweeping effort toward this was aimed at completing what generations called the Reconquista, the conquest of the Muslim kingdom of Granada, the last Islamic stronghold in Iberia. It was a long and grueling campaign that tested their resources and their relationship. Isabella often joined Ferdinand on the battlefield camps, proving her strength and devotion to the cause. After 10 years of relentless siege and negotiation, Granada surrendered on January 2, 1492. The triumph was monumental. It symbolized the end of nearly 8 centuries of Muslim rule in Spain, and launched Ferdinand and Isabella into legendary status as the Catholic Monarchs. But the same faith that united Spain came with dark consequences. In 1478, they established the Spanish Inquisition, an institution designed to enforce Catholic orthodoxy, often through fear and brutality. In 1492, the monarchs issued the Alhambra Decree, expelling Jews who refused to convert to Christianity. Later, forced conversions of Muslims followed. While these actions solidified religious control, they also caused immense suffering and drove thousands of skilled people into exile, leaving a complex and painful legacy that still shadows their reign. Yet 1492 held a brighter legacy as well. A bold navigator named Christopher Columbus arrived at their court with a daring proposal: to reach Asia by sailing west across the Atlantic. Initially dismissed by advisors, his plan caught Isabella's imagination. She believed it could expand Spain's influence and spread Christianity to new lands. After long deliberation, she and Ferdinand agreed to fund Columbus's voyage. His landing in the Americas that same year marked the beginning of a global empire, one that would bring Spain immense wealth, power, and influence, though also unleash conquest, colonization, and profound destruction among indigenous peoples. The partnership between Ferdinand and Isabella extended to their family as well. They had 5 surviving children, and every one of them was used to strengthen Spain's political alliances through marriage. Their daughter, Catherine of Aragon, would later marry England's Henry VIII, shaping the future of the English monarchy and the religious transformation that followed. Through such alliances, the Catholic monarchs connected Spain to the most powerful dynasties in Europe. Despite the grandeur of their rule, they were not immune to personal tragedy. They endured the deaths of several children and grandchildren, including their only son and heir, Prince Juan, a devastating blow that casts uncertainty on the future of the empire they built. These losses weighed especially heavily on Isabella. who had always balanced her resolute public image with fierce maternal devotion. Isabella's death in 1504 marked the end of an era. Spain mourned deeply for the queen who had brought stability and hope to Castile. Ferdinand, though grief-stricken, continued to rule as long as he could, striving to maintain the unity they had created. But his power slowly waned, especially as his daughter Joanna and her husband Philip the Handsome inherited Castile. Ferdinand returned to Aragon and remarried in a final attempt to produce another male heir. He died in 1516, leaving the crowns of both Castile and Aragon ultimately to their grandson, the future Emperor Charles V, who would rule the largest empire the world had yet seen. Though they were gone, Ferdinand and Isabella's impact only expanded. They were national heroes, celebrated as the founders of Spain. Their policies led to a golden age marked by global exploration, military might, flourishing arts, and extraordinary wealth. But their legacy is deeply contradictory. Alongside achievements of unity, diplomacy, and empire stood acts of religious intolerance, forced conversion, and colonization that shaped centuries of global history. Their love story, if measured by devotion, trust, and partnership, remains one of the most powerful in the chronicles of monarchy. They respected each other as equals in ruling and strategy, an unusual balance in a world dominated by kings. They shared victories and losses, dreams and doubts, and they worked tirelessly to turn a fragile pair of kingdoms into a nation that would dominate Europe and the newly encountered lands across the ocean. Their greatest successes came not from romance alone, but from what their love allowed them to do: take bold risks as one. Without each other, Isabella might have remained a princess without allies, and Ferdinand a king ruling a smaller, divided realm. Together they dared to imagine a different future, and then they built it. History remembers them as the Catholic Monarchs, but they were more than a title. They were visionaries shaped by their time, yet audacious enough to reshape that time. Their union set the foundations for modern Spain and altered the course of world events. It was a love forged in secrecy, strengthened by war, guided by faith, and defined by an unbreakable ambition. Ferdinand and Isabella's story echoes through the centuries as a reminder of how two people, bound not only by affection but by a shared purpose, can change the destiny of millions. Love helped build an empire, and though the empire would evolve, fracture, and expand far beyond their imagination, the legacy of that royal love remains one of history's most astonishing transformations.